welcome to Labor Lens, where we bring to you update information in the world of work and pay. I am Sharon Ijason. This week we will be discussing the national minimum wage, its urgent need for it to be reviewed according to workers, and many more. But before we dig deeper, let's take the news. We will be right back.
Protests of pro and anti-support groups took place on the reinstatement of the executive secretary of the NHIS, Usman Yusuf, at the NHIS headquarters in Jabi. The protesters of both groups were seen chanting slogans as they express their grievances. Speaking on behalf of the anti-Yusuf protesters, the chairman of the Association of Senior Civil Servants, NHIS chapter, Comrade Omomeji Abdul Razak, says the reinstatement of Yusuf is giving rise to a witch hunt on those who had given evidences against him during his suspension. Abdul Razak also added that the other group of Yusuf supporters are staff who were brought in illegally by the NHIS boss.
One of the impunity of Professor Usman Yusuf is the sign of those people who saw carrying placard. Some of them were recruited. Are you getting me? Yes. Placed above their qualification. Okay, and we have gotten approval of the supervisory ministry to bring them down to the appropriate level they deserve.
We call on all well-meaning Nigerians to support this focused and result-oriented leadership in NHIS that is under Professor Usman Yusuf. Number two, our request is we urge NHIS staff to continue to discharge their normal duties without fear of intimidation and harassment by a faction of union.
Nigeria Union of Local Government Employees has rejected and condemned the recommendation in the APC Restructuring Committee report seeking the scrap of local government as a third tier of government and its delisting from the constitution of the country. Addressing journalists in the nation's capital, the union described the report as a predetermined position of a cabal in the party and not the position of the people. They called on the party leadership to discard the report and not dissipate unnecessary energy considering it.
The governors and the committee cannot run away from the pact. As we said, we participated in all the venues where this committee had the consultative with other stakeholders in Nigeria. And we know what transpired. The majority of the presentation made during the consultations were in support of local government, pre-local government, a functional local government, democratic local government that will be for the people, of the people, and by the people. And for the committee to come with a different report that does not in any way reflect what people presented during the consultation, we believe that is a self-determined position, particularly by the chairman of the committee and few others that have influence, heavy influence on the committee.
The inauguration of a 30-member tripartite National Minimum Wage Committee for the negotiation of a new national minimum wage for Nigerian workers has elicited a lot of expectations and hope among Nigerian workers. On November 27, 2017, President Muhammadu Buhari inaugurated the committee in Abuja, which governors and senior government officials, among other stakeholders, witnessed. Although the committee is yet to begin sitting after inauguration, workers are keeping hope alive in 2018 that the committee will come out with useful decisions after its assignment. Tokwe Aluko, a teacher who receives 18,000 naira as monthly wages, wants the federal government to conclude negotiation on the implementation of a new minimum wage so that her salary will be able to enable her cater for her kids.
It's not easy for me. For the past 3 years now, I've been managing their school fees. I have to pay their school fees, but though my husband is supporting in that aspect, their food, they have to eat, maybe in a month, I have to look for what it is. Like, I spend close to 8,000 in a month.
Recently, a report was released by the ruling All Progressive Congress Committee on Restructuring, recommending that labor issues be moved from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. This has generated a lot of reactions as labor leaders are of the view that salaries and entitlements of workers should be negotiated by the federal government and not individual states. According to them, this is what makes it a national minimum wage.
So you now see some states, even they would descend below that 18,000 naira when you are saying that you want to improve it. That's the wider implication. And where they are going is that each state should now have its own labor unions. That's the extent to which it's going. You understand? We have some real progressive people that are just masquerading as leaders. And as far as we are concerned, we have said it times and times again that most of them don't have business in the government house. You make progress as a country. You don't retrogress.
Why people are talking about recession? The privileged ones in government are collecting their pay, while the underprivileged are not being paid. Everything that will make us to survive and look like human beings are considered not important. So if you push the workers to the wall, of course, you will see action, which will include industrial action and some other actions.
In an exclusive interview, the Director General of Nigeria's Employers Consultative Association, NECA, was of the view that Nigeria is a party to many international organizations. He also tells me Nigerian workers will benefit more if the labor laws are not removed from the exclusive list and sent to the residual list.
Now the question is if you have moved labor issues to the residual list, right? And the federal government at the international level has signed on to certain convention. The state will have no choice but to implement those conventions. But we must understand clearly what was driving this call for delisting. It's simply the national minimum wage. But the United States of America runs a far more better federal system than us. And it still has national minimum wage, with the federal government legislate on from time to time. If the United States of America, whose system we have copied, has been able to run it effectively for ages, then what is our issue?
Labour had earlier submitted a proposal of 56,000 naira and 90,000 naira to the federal government as new minimum wage. In 2008, NLC demanded for 52,000 naira. The National Minimum Wage Act was signed in April 2011 and has a 5-year reopener clause for new negotiation, which has been due for review for more than 2 years.
We should aim to go above the basic social protection floor for all Nigerian workers based on the ability of each tier of government to pay.
In all of this, the president did not give a time ceiling to the committee members during their inauguration, but workers, especially the low-skilled ones, hope that the outcome of the deliberation would be consensual and generally acceptable.
The present-day reality, no. It is really not at all. You can't even, how are you going to do it? Even within a month, you would have expended that on just only on transportation. Even depends on where you work. If somebody is, take Lagos for example, probably you are living in maybe Ikorodu, and you work in somewhere in Ireland. Under two, which you will have expended the 18,000 minimum. You are not talking about school fees for your kids. You're not even talking about feeding. You're not talking about other social amenities that you have to pay. In fact, if it was when the naira was a little bit valuable, I mean valuable where you has about 190, 150 to $1, it could make sense. We are talking about something about 360 naira to $1. No. Even if it is increased to 50,000, it can't even take anybody home.
Depending on where you're from, and that's why when people talk about restructuring, these are areas that we need to restructure in terms of the minimum wage. I don't see why Lagos State minimum wage should be like that of Kebbi State. Are you with me? So, depending on where you are from, the house rent in Lagos cannot. If you pay somebody in Lagos State 120,000 and you pay somebody in Kebbi State 120,000, comparatively, even the person in Kebbi is even earning much more than someone in Lagos. So, first and foremost, 18,000 is not enough. Considering current realities, 18,000 is not enough. However, when we want to restructure the issue of minimum wage, let each state pay according to its own capacity and according to prevailing market conditions.
On the Profile Interview segment this week, I will be speaking with the General Secretary of NUHI, who is also the National President of the United Labour Congress. He will be telling me what labour leaders across Nigeria should do to ensure that workers' rights are protected, especially when it comes to the urgent need to review the national minimum wage. Join me. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
The APC committee, headed by the governor of Kaduna State, Governor El-Rufai, has recommended that the minimum wage should be moved from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. What's your take on this?
Well, one thing that is glaring is that the APC committee is not the National Assembly. But it is equally good that El-Rufai spoke, and we are now aware of the thinking of APC, and that the APC wants minimum wage to be put in the concurrent list instead of the exclusive list. The Nigerian workers will respond accordingly, because we did not vote APC to carry out that level of constitutional amendment. When they were coming, they didn't tell us they were going to take minimum wage from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. What that means is that they are indirectly doing away with the issue of federation. They want to look at a kind of confederal arrangement where the states generate their resources and pay the workers. Now, if the country wants to go confederal, that will be a different ballgame. But I don't think that any worker, and I think that recommendation amounts to political suicide. No worker, and we are going to go into sensitization of workers. No worker will hear that, both active and non-active workers will hear that statement and still go the way of APC, because it is anti-worker, it is so unprogressive, and it has never happened, anywhere except those with another brand of a political arrangement. El-Rufai, I think, for being honest to tell us what APC is planning, we are going to commend him instead of doing it from the back door. But the workers will equally know that somebody wants to separate them so that Nigerian worker will not be a Nigerian worker. Now you have an Imo worker who earns a certain amount of money. You have a Borno worker. You have a Lagos worker separately. And then there will be no basis for them to collect money from federation account. Because why give them federation account if they will generate from their own local resources and pay themselves? So it's an indirect way of saying, okay, minimum wage, everybody, state handle your minimum wage. State handle your police. State handle your army. Handle your navy. Handle your security. So I think we have to discuss all these things jointly. We can't take the issue of minimum wage in isolation. So when they bring it to the table, I think we'll go there. But Nigerian workers are such that if we say that APC would not win election again in this country, they will not win. And I think that those advising them should have advised them on the people to engage. Nigerian workers are not the people you can take on these issues. El-Rufai may be playing with teachers in Kaduna. If we decide, especially those of us from ULC, decide to look at El-Rufai in the next 24 days, he will not be governor there. The next 24 days, Kaduna will not be governable to him. So Nigerian workers are such that even when you rig election, they can challenge the election and shut down this area and you will not enter office. So in case he doesn't know the people he is calling that are called Nigerian workers, that he's trying to attack their source of income and their livelihood, I think the APC should have a better committee to review it, to have a broader outlook and tell us whether this is what they want. So that we can equally re-strategize and engage them.
So how do you think this is going to affect negotiation, looking at the tripartite committee that's been set up?
Well, if you look at the statement from the, I think, is it the director of budget, from the budget office or so, you discover that there's no sincerity in the negotiation. If a man comes up to tell you that, oh, we don't have this, we don't have provision for the minimum wage in 2018 budget, what he's telling you is that we want to keep you busy deceiving yourself that you are negotiating. That we can even think of it as a political tool to win an election in 2019. So maybe at the eve of 2019, we can say, oh, we have increased minimum wage. And since he made that statement, some of us from the labor think tank, we have been reviewing it, and we knew it was an honest statement from him. So probably with time we are going to respond to that. But that's the fact, that they don't have any plans for the implementation of minimum wage, either this year or not. So whatever things you are hearing, either from Gige or whatever, is sheer political rhetorics. And that some of us are too old for them to think that they are deceiving. I think they are deceiving themselves.
Gombe State government has said that they are ready to pay the 56,000 naira minimum wage proposed. Looking at the fact that the DG Budget Office, Ben Akabwe, they have already said that it's not in the budget for 2018. What do you feel, looking at the fact that some states are not even paying the minimum wage and the state is coming out forward to say they are ready to pay more than double that amount? What's your take on that?
Well, I think what is happening is that in the first instance, it is instructive to note that the Gombe State government is not APC. That might be one. And he may be making a point for his own political party in the first instance. But if in actual fact he's ready to pay, then some of us should go there and learn a lot. Because I'm not sure they're among the oil producing states. And let me say this. In 2015, before the election, which APC won in almost some of the states, but in Gombe, the governor there was worker friendly. Even a month before that, he paid productivity and was not owing any worker. So even if you are flushing out all members of his political family, he remained there. And from what he has said, he has shown commitment that he's worker friendly. Now the magic is that, why don't you study why Gombe can pay 56, or they are willing to pay 56, and Imo, Anambra, some other states can pay 56. But let me clear this before we go into a political trap that they are setting, whether they can pay or not. By the time minimum wage was set at 18,000 naira, that is the benchmark. And under the law, the very moment a benchmark is set, any state that has the capacity can pay more than that. So I don't even see anything holding Gombe State government from paying 50 as of today, since the benchmark is 18,000. That 18,000 is the level at which you can go under. But the ceiling up there is not pegged. So I think the states that can pay should go ahead and pay. But some other states that can pay, with what is happening in Gombe now, shows that there is not their priority. They may have other priorities, contrary to human beings. They may be interested on contract award while people are dying. So maybe Gombe State government is talking of people first. And where you have people first, that country will grow. I think if he has said it, he must have checked his resources, and I think it's doable. Most other states can still do that or even do better. So it's commendable.
Talking about growth, We still have so many states that are not paying workers' salaries as at when due, and we also have some states that have been owing for as much as 10, 12, 22 months. What's your take on this, owing to the fact that the minimum wage has to be reviewed, and right now we are in February 2018, and we still have some states that have been
I think they
they
are blackmailing us. It's just like what El-Rufai did in Kaduna. El-Rufai was doing it on behalf of some of his APC governors to reduce the staff population, pending if there will be any increase in salary, so that they will say they cannot pay. So he was trying to reduce the state workforce. Many of the states will still do it. They will still try it. Before now, even before, the states were paying. Some of the governors before them were paying. Suddenly, they are trying to blackmail us to say that even 18,000 we can't pay. Why do you want to increase it? It's an old logic. They were paying 18,000 and they moved a pump price from 97 to 145. I was thinking that that's additional revenue for them. And they have been recovering billions from loot. And they have been giving us figures of what customs is collecting and the tax office, what they are collecting. Do a simple arithmetic and compare it with the number of roads they have constructed, if any, and the rail lines, or whatever they have done, and find out why is it that they can't pay 18,000 minimum wage.
Okay, according to law, the Nigerian Labour Congress, ULC, TUC, are supposed to have met earlier before now, because the minimum wage is supposed to be reviewed every 5 years, and that ultimatum or time has elapsed. If we have a vibrant labor in Nigeria, what are the steps that should be taken at this point, owing to the fact that the government seems to be foot-dragging on ensuring that workers have a living wage?
Well, let me pick the word vibrant labor. You can't have vibrant labor under the state appointees as labor leaders. And that was what was at the soul of the contest for NLC or TUC leadership over the years. When you have those people who are government employees imposed on us, there's nothing they can do. And I'm saying it here clearly. But in few occasions where you have people from the private sector, like when we pushed in Adams Oshomole, they are not looking at who will sack them from work. And as of today, NLC, TUC, I challenge them to say that they are not extension of the Federal Ministry of Labor. They are. And with that at the back of your mind, even after the Director of Budget had spoken, are they still waiting for anything? Is there anything that they don't know? Well, because these people are extension of government, and they are government staff, government workers. That has been the problem between the private sector and public sector battling for the soul of leadership of these organizations. Now, government having seized those ones. Now, they are now seeing ULC as a recalcitrant organization. However, on this subject matter, the public sector unions are the soul of it. They are the people that depend on the enactment of minimum wage before they could get 18,000. In my sector and in the private sector, it's a lie. If our agreement expires, we'll go and renew it. As of today, the minimum wage is just to get a benchmark to negotiate. So we don't wait for minimum wage. So, because the ones that wait for minimum wage, government has seized them. And they are helpless. The highest these two labor centers can do today is to protest. They don't have the capacity to shut down the economy activities of this country. They don't. Now, because they want to remain relevant, answer that they are the people that are recognized, they have not condescended to talk to those that have the capacity to do the changes. Ordinarily, why would they go and protest in the streets of Kaduna while Rufai was insulting us? From here, could have stopped power supply to Kaduna, could have stopped fuel, There wouldn't have been any train entering Kaduna. There would be no plane, and we watch Aero 5 for 1 week. They don't have the capacities, so they just move around the streets dancing. And he was looking at them. So the very moment the labor movement puts their house in order, and people start to say that they are recognized without power. When you are recognized and you don't have power, you are helpless. So the very moment we articulate these issues and look at the worker issue, whether it's in the private sector, in the public sector, he's a teacher, he's an engineer, he's an electricity worker, he's a petroleum worker, and aggregate it and do the battle. Let them still answer their name and say they are recognized by Ngige. But meanwhile, the Nigerian worker will have had a voice in the country. Until that is done, the minimum wage negotiation can last the next 10 years. Nothing will happen. But those of us in the private sector, we must review our agreement whenever it expires. So it is in their own interest for us to talk. I'm not going to answer NLC. Let them answer their NLC, and they are recognized. But if you are recognized and you don't have powers, the person is useless.
So are you saying that the unity
of the labor movement, both those that are recognized, both those that have not been registered, including the informal worker who is on the road, is at stake? Now, until you bring them together, that is when even a domestic servant in the house will know that, oh, minimum wage has increased. My madam, what do you go do for me? That's it. Meanwhile, the domestic worker in the house does not belong to any union. But when this thing is happening, it will favor the domestic worker. It will reflect there. And if people are moving, check out those who protest, those who go on strike. It's not just the ones that are saying that they have license. Any license that you can use that can put food on your table is useless. That piece of paper should be thrown away.
It's good to have you on the program.
God bless you.
And that's all we can take on this episode of Labor Lens. Join us same time next week for a fresh edition of the program. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember, labor creates wealth.